Hi friends, welcome back to Brilliant Blue Reviews. My name is Heather and this video is going to be my review of the movie Wuthering Heights, written and directed by Emerald Fennell. I did not see either of Emerald Fennell's previous movies. Shoot, now I can't think of the name of it. One is Saltburn, which got a lot of interesting buzz, and the other one was something of a woman. I can't think of it now. I wasn't really familiar with her work or anything, but after seeing the preview for this movie for quite a while now, it was high on my list of something that I wanted to see. And then I started hearing things about it after it came out, and I started to get really hesitant about it and really was debating with myself and my daughter, who's 21, and she went to the movie with me tonight. By the way, it is late at night. It's almost midnight. I am in a hotel again, and the wind is absolutely howling outside, so you might be able to hear that in the video. That is absolutely totally appropriate for this movie because the howling wind and the wind on the moors and the rain and everything is very apropos for this film. Okay, so I was really debating about it after I started hearing things, but Megan and I have concluded that the people who are really complaining and really don't like this movie are fans of the original novel. And they're trying to look at this movie as an adaptation of the novel, Wuthering Heights. You really shouldn't. Completely change the story, for one thing. And if you are looking for that, if you're looking for a straight-on adaptation of the novel, you're not going to like it because it's going to bother you too much, all the changes that are made. I can't actually remember if I ever read Wuthering Heights or not. If I did, I had no real memory of it. I have heard things about the book. I had to actually look up how it actually ends after the movie. I didn't want to go in there knowing how it was supposed to end. I wanted to go in there fresh, just to evaluate the movie itself and to enjoy the movie itself. And I'm glad that I did that. I would recommend that if you've never read the book, don't read the book before you go to this movie, because you'll enjoy the movie more if you don't have the book in your head messing with you. Like, wait, that's not how that's supposed to go. Neither Meg or I, either I had not ever read it or don't remember reading it, and Megan had not read it. So that was actually a good thing. So if you're a big fan of the book, you're probably not going to like the movie. I mean, maybe you will, but it's going to bother you because it's very different than the book. And I didn't care about that. I either didn't read it or don't remember reading it, have no intention of reading it. I didn't care about the book. I just wanted to go to the movie. I thought the movie looked cool. I thought the love story between Heathcliff and Kathy looked cool. I thought the music was going to be really interesting with Charlie XCX doing the music. The scenery and the cinematography, the costumes, everything about this movie is very visually stunning. It's a big epic type scale movie with absolutely gorgeous sets, really interesting use of color, the costumes especially. There's a whole thing with the color red throughout the movie that's very thematic and that Megan accurately predicted about halfway through the movie. She said, "Mom, I really think the whole color red thing with the floor and her skirts and everything going on with the color red in the movie is foreshadowing," which it definitely was. And that was really an interesting way that she did it. It's very stylistic. It reminded us a lot of, well, at one point, there's a very different role for Margot Robbie. She has to be very vulnerable and very emotional in this role. And if the only thing you've ever seen her in is Barbie, which Megan and I hated that movie. We hated Barbie with a passion. Okay, if that's the only thing you've ever seen her in, this is very different for her. So from that. But there's one scene in this where oh my God, she's literally holiday Barbie. Okay, like what she's wearing and the look of it and everything, we're like, oh my God, it's holiday Barbie. But that's just like with the costuming. The costuming is amazing. The one thing that we kind of thought of was Moulin Rouge. It kind of has a very similar style to Moulin Rouge, which is Baz Luhrmann. And I like Baz Luhrmann a lot. I don't like Australia, but I loved Elvis. We saw it a bazillion times in the theater, including in London. And I love Moulin Rouge. Moulin Rouge is one of my all-time favorite movies. Kind of a very similar style. It's not a musical like those are, but like, it's supposed to be set in the past, but some of the costuming and the music and everything is modern or contemporary. And that kind of weird stylistic choices. And like even some of the things that they wore in this movie, it's like, this is not something they would have worn in the late 1700s, so it was almost like steampunk Wuthering Heights, if you will. Very interesting visually, just really stunning and kind of a feast for the eyes, just really cool to look at. I mean, it was very interesting viewing and stunning and beautiful. And then lots of like on location stuff, like in the moors and in the wilderness of the area where they lived in England. Now, the two leads in this movie, Jacob Elordi and Margot Robbie, happen to both be Australian. So they're Australians playing British characters, which is fine. They do a fine job with the accent. I will warn you that Jacob Elordi as Heathcliff is often difficult to understand. I'm pretty good with accents, and even I had some trouble sometimes understanding what he said. I was like, what did he say? And there were a few times that I kind of wished I had closed captioning. I might actually watch the movie again once it comes out on streaming, just so I can have the closed captioning on. Because even Megan said too, she said she missed a couple of key things that he said because it was a little bit difficult to understand him with his accent, which is an Australian man playing a British character. So we were still trying to decide about this because I worked all day. I drove an hour to my son's because I needed to see him and do something with him. And we were talking about that Megan and I were going to go to this movie. And he goes, oh, Mom, are you sure? It's going to be really racy. And it's the same, people who did Saltburn. And I said, well, I didn't see Saltburn. I've only heard about it or whatever. And he was kind of warning me off. So then I was really hesitant again after my daughter had agreed to go with me. Now, Megan had read the whole parent guide, and she always reads spoilers because she likes to be prepared if there's going to be anything that's going to be unsettling or disturbing or whatever. She just likes to be prepared so that she can kind of like, look away or say, no, oh, I'm going to go leave the theater right now, go to the bathroom or whatever. So she knew what was going to happen, but she didn't tell me. But at one point, very near the end, I turned to her and I asked her, is this going to happen? And she said yes. And so that, which at that point I was fine with it. But I appreciate, that she can kind of warn me about like icky stuff and things like that. It wasn't really necessary. I was completely fine throughout this whole movie. It is rated R. It's rated R for swearing, lots of sex related stuff. Not super graphic though. I mean, we felt like this sex stuff was actually very tastefully done. There's actually no nudity at all, which is interesting. So imagine the implication of sex scenes, but without nudity. The way it opens is actually very interesting. You hear something first, and you assume it's something sexual because that's what it sounds like. And it turns out to be something very different. And that was like, oh, like right away you were kind of thrown off and taken, out of your comfort zone because you were like, oh, that's not what I thought that was, So that was kind of interesting how it started. The ending is also really cool. It's not what happens in the book, but I really liked the very last minute or two because of what the choice that she made. It was actually very sweet. And at the end, we were both just weeping. We were just crying, tears were just streaming down my face. I was very moved and it was very emotional and impactful for both of us. We really, really enjoyed it. Let me back up. So after I left my son's on my way to go to my daughter's, which was another hour drive, and then it was another hour drive from where my daughter is to this hotel where I'm staying right now. It's been a long day. I've been up for, 17, 18 hours. I'm pretty tired. But I really wanted to get this review filmed while this was still fresh in my mind. So on the way down to my daughter's, I listened to 2 YouTube videos that I've had on my watch later list for a while. I have not been able to keep up with my YouTube viewing because I've been so busy because now I'm working full time basically again in a regular job, and I just haven't been able to keep up with it. But I knew I had these 2 reviews saved on my watch later playlist by 2 other YouTube creators that I watch. And that is The Awards Contender, hosted by Brian, and Jeffrey Johns. So they both do movie reviews. Now, Jeffrey Johns is more like kind of fun. Like he likes to look for like the entertainment value, like how much did I enjoy it? So that's one perspective. And then Brian on the awards contender, he's more of like a film critic and looking at like the actual like empirical quality of the film, the acting, all of that stuff. So by listening to those two reviews in that hour that I drove down from my sons to my daughters, I was able to get more of a fuller picture. They're both spoiler-free reviews. They don't give any spoilers, just like I really try not to. I appreciated that, but they were able to give me kind of an assessment. And after listening to those two reviews, I decided, no, I definitely want to go to this movie. And I am so glad I did. Megan and I both absolutely loved this movie. We loved it. We were both crying at the end. This was an automatic 5 for both of us. Absolutely loved Wuthering Heights. Highly recommend it. But you almost have to be of the mind like we are. Now, I'll tell you what those two reviewers' main complaints were. Brian, the more movie critic guy from Awards Contender, his complaint was it wasn't freaky enough. Okay? It didn't go far enough, like with the sex and with the, stuff that Emerald Fennell is known for in her previous 2 movies. I didn't care about that. I was actually glad that he said this is obviously, kind of more for a mainstream audience. So I appreciated that because I thought it was actually very tastefully done. Still, you still get the passion and the desire and the great longing that Heathcliff and Kathy have for each other, but it wasn't, it didn't like freak you out or anything. Okay, so that was his main complaint, but that actually reassured me. Jeremy's main complaint was he thought that the main characters were terrible, terrible people. And he thought that the movie was forgettable, which I do not agree with at all. Yes, there's a couple times where you're kind of like, gosh, that wasn't a great choice. And you are kind of thinking to yourself, all of this could have been solved by communication, okay? Like it sort of reminded me of the ever popular Ross and Rachel taking a break scenario, okay? If they'd had cell phones back then, Ross would have texted Rachel and said, have you seen that meme? And said, are we actually on a break? And she would have texted back, no. And then Ross wouldn't have cheated and none of that would have happened, okay? And you wouldn't have had that whole thing with Ross and Rachel all through 10 seasons of Friends. Are they going to get back together? What's going to happen? Okay? This was kind of like that. It was like if they had just communicated with each other. And actually there was a little bit of an element of like atonement. Secondary character actually kind of interfered and messed things up for them. And that character was very interesting. I kind of went back and forth about her. It's Nellie. She's like I don't know what she is. Her lady in waiting? I don't know. I don't really understand what her role is, but she's with Kathy throughout the entire movie, from childhood all the way to the very end. She alternatively seems to really care deeply for Kathy and take good care of her, but then at other times seems very manipulative and is actually sabotaging her happiness. Yeah, she was a really kind of interesting, complex character as well, the character of Nellie. The acting was very good. The love story between Heathcliff and Kathy really moved me. I could deeply relate to their love story, and I found it very powerful. But not everybody's going to see it that way. I mean, when I was reading reviews of it, people were complaining. They're like, oh, she's cheating on her husband the whole time. And you know what? People get over it. I mean, I think people, especially in the United States, are so freaking prudish about sex and infidelity. I don't know. I could go on about that a lot longer. But I mean, I think that the people who are focused on that are missing the point. A couple of fun things that surprised us about this movie is, number one, there was actually quite a few parts that were very funny, that were very light, and we laughed and stuff like that. And the other thing that I thought was really interesting was it was really entertaining. It was much more entertaining than I expected it to be. And there's a few places where they do these kind of montages where a bunch of clips go by really fast, and that's where they have some of this Charlie XCX music is kind of over it and stuff, and those were kind of entertaining. So, I mean, overall, the movie just flew by. I mean, it didn't feel too short. It didn't feel too long. It felt like a really good length. I just really, really enjoyed it, much more than I was expecting to after I heard the reviews. Like, I had been really looking forward to it when I saw the previews, and then the reviews and the buzz that I heard about it kind of scared me off. And I'm glad that I ignored that and went to the movie anyway, because I really loved the movie. And like I said, I give it 5 stars. So that is my review and my personal opinion about Wuthering Heights. Have you seen Wuthering Heights? What did you think of it? Do you agree or disagree with any of the things that I'm saying? Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this movie review. And if you don't want to miss any of my upcoming movie reviews, make sure that you are subscribed to the channel so you don't miss those when they come out. Have a great day, everyone, and I'll see you next time.